on from a conversation I had with a young man named Darvin Robinson, who is currently on here right now. It was it was a take. I'll say it was a hot take, but I was like, me and him spoke about it. He said, "Hey, I want to talk about this on your show." I'm like, "Okay, cool," because we definitely disagree with this take. Uh, so the question was, is the talk, the way I worded it, is the talk that we have with the kids and to our, our group, is that a fact or is that a fiction? Is that a real thing? I'm gonna let Darvin swing at this one first because he believed wholeheartedly, and I mean that could be true in some spaces of the African American community that the talk is not a real thing. So I'll let him go for a little bit, and then we'll have people chime in from that point.
I don't gotta express it too long, but as a summary, when people say, for example, if you watch the presidential debate recently, the moderator asked Trump if she gave him a story about how Black people have to talk, which is the race talk, with their family, and then how does he plan on assisting the Black community. I personally, from obviously it's a personal opinion, but from growing up in the Black community for 28 years, have never once had a friend who family came and sat them down and said, let's have a race talk. This is how I feel like you should perform. This is how I feel like you should act should you come into contact with a police officer or white people or any other race other than your own. And I'm not saying that those talking points aren't a thing in the Black community. What I am saying, however, is that we don't sit down and have the birds and the bees talk, like how you sit down with your child, have the birds and the bees talk. We don't sit down and have the race talk. It's a political talking point that's in the favor of the Black community, so we just go along with it. That's my general synopsis of it.
Okay. CC.
What up?
How do you feel about that one?
I believe he can. I believe he has the right for his opinion, and it may be not happen. It maybe didn't happen in his family, but from my experience and from a lot of my friends, I'm probably a lot older than you. That talk has happened. It might not happen in so many details, but just to give you an example, my father had that conversation with me several times in my lifetime of growing up. Similar to when I was maybe 16 before I started driving, and then another conversation when I was 18 before I was leaving to go up north to go to school. So I believe that conversation do happen in some households. I'm not going to say that is as common as some might believe or might not believe, but that conversation do happen.
Okay. Chad, as a young man, you probably the youngest one up, or the youngest male on here. Has that been a thing for you? Have you ever had that conversation?
Yeah, it would be like bits and pieces. Or like my mom would talk to me about it. And by the way, like I was raised by a single Black mom, so like I never had to talk with like my dad about it. Really, like my mom has always emphasized that, like being a Black man, I have like 2 strikes against me because of that. And like recently, I just got a car too, so that's something we've like kind of discussed a little more, but it hasn't been like a very thorough conversation per se, but it's been something that's like been discussed though over the years for sure. But it hasn't been like how you have like the birds and the bees. She never sat me down, but she would always just be in my ear telling me, Chad, this is how you handle yourself as a Black man. During like routine traffic stops, or when you're getting pulled over, if that happens. So yeah, it's something we've talked about, but it hasn't been thorough, like I said.
Okay, let's go to the leaders of the Black world. The mother, the mother is always the leader of the family and the culture at that point. Leanne, I know your kids. You got a small one. Is that going to be a thing that you continue to use, or have you used that before?
Absolutely. Well, my children have the benefit of going to very diverse schools. So they get the conversation about race relations, not so that they could be on the defense, but so they could be on the offense. My job is to make them proactive instead of reactive. So we do talk about how people grow up differently, how there are certain issues that their counterparts, their friends who are of different races will not have to deal with. Unfortunately for my kids, they were in the car when I was with their father, and we weren't pulled over, but we were in the car already. Police pulled up next to us, said they smelled weed. We weren't smoking weed. There were people in the park. Their father ended up being arrested in front of them. So yes, my kids at a very young age had to have a conversation about police brutality, about how some police officers, not all police officers, um, may not have the best intent for you when they pull you over, and that there are times where you have to be more respectful because the goal is to make it home.
Ari,
Um,
Ari, a college student, just like a bunch of these people on here are. How do you view is the talk a thing for girls or just for black men? Because I don't know. I think I've only heard it one way in my life.
For me personally, I've never had to talk. I've just always moved with like a common sense type of notion. I feel like that's a lot of the experience for a lot of Black people and Black women. Like I don't know why it's usually geared toward, in my opinion, Black men. But as we see from Sandra Bland, it happens to women too. It doesn't really matter who you are. It just matters what color your skin is, in my opinion. But no, I've never personally had the sit down talk about this is what you do when you see a police car. This is how you act when you get pulled over. It's just always kind of been, I know for me, just going off of what I see in movies, honestly, and TV shows, and seeing how when a Black person is pulled over, it's kind of like a really scary situation and stuff like that. And you're just automatically inclined to just be respectful and to be scared to sweat because you either seen in real life or in the movies and TV shows what happens as a result, or even not as a result. So, but I do definitely think it is
So when Cornelius
more
was
geared
talking
towards
about at
Black
the age of
men.
16, and then he gave about him going to college. So the difference between the point I'm making and what he said, because what he talked about is what children, it's how parents guide their children. It's not just in the context of, okay, now you're driving. So if you encounter a police officer or some traffic stop, then this is how you should respond. I think that is a talk that families have with their child in general. When you take it back to the context of the debate, which is why I voiced my opinion on, she just talked about the race talk in general. When you sit down and you talk to your child and say, essentially what Chad said that he feel is that he already got 2 strikes against him. That talk itself, now that's a talking point within the community. But sitting down with your child and basically saying everything is stacked against you. I want you to know when you go out into this world that you have to work twice as hard to get the same as everybody else. That's a talking point, but sitting down with your child and having a discussion is not a thing, generally speaking. Now, there may be some families that have had this conversation, but there are families that have done everything. There's 47 million Black people in America. Mm-hmm. But generally speaking, you don't go to your friend and say, "How old are you now? You're 13? Oh, get ready for the race talk." You don't have that discussion with your friend, nor do you harp on, I remember having a race talk with my pops. We barely even had birds and the bees talk, let alone having a race talk. So that's my point here. Now, there are families that do actually sit down and who are big believers of Black people have everything stacked against them. And so they do sit down with their child and say, listen, this is the case. But generally speaking, that's not the case.
I understand what you're saying, but I think, and like I said, it's all opinion, but I think you're grabbing too much into the way the talking point, the way you're describing it, how she used it. I believe I forgot Barr, the young lady in college. I think for most African Americans that deal with racism, I think it is a lot of common sense, and I think that the talk is more so utilizing stories and experiences, not so much a conversation talk, but through conversations and experiences that your family members or that your parents have, I think through all them different elements, along with just common sense of what you hear growing up, I think you get that from that. I mean, I know I'm all over the place, but I understand what you're saying. But I do still believe that a lot of families, one way or another, try to express similar to what she was trying to relay, if that makes sense.
Yeah, man. I mean, but in general, and you can take it back as far as possible in human history, we encode messages and stories in general. So it's not we're encoding the race talk and through stories. Let me sit down and tell you about my encounter with a police officer. And most times when we encode messages through stories, it's about wisdom. It's not about.
But when you say race talk, when you say race talk, what exactly do you mean when you say race talk?
On it. So in the context of her the question during the debate, she generally just spoke and said, President Trump, a lot of black families have the talk with their families, and then she gave a couple examples on what that talk looks like, and it was a racial talk. And so, but she was speaking generally when she said it, and then she asked him, how does he plan on basically building the black community's confidence in police and government and helping them excel just as the average white family would. And so when you don't
think that she was more so hitting or speaking upon that because of the environment that we're in right now, more so than making it seem, I mean, like I said, I understand what you're saying, but you don't think she was just more so grabbing towards today's young people, young parents, what they might have to relate to their young African American kids in today's environment?
I think
like do you think in today's environment do that talk need to happen?
No.
Whoa.
I don't believe that. That's a whole nother discussion though. But
hold on. And let's get
I don't believe that. Let me just say this real quick. I don't believe that because I believe a lot of what we follow in the black community is narrative more than it is fact. And so I do believe when you have when constant stories of racial injustices and everything that goes along with it is being had on a national level and internationally, and then you have all these big outcomes and these this big action that stems from the narrative, then then having a discussion with your child about what's going on in general is definitely something that should happen. But telling your child that he is what would you call it? What did Michelle Obama say? She said, no matter how hard you try as a black child, you're not going to succeed. It's essentially the message she said at the graduation when they did the worldwide national high school graduation. This was her message. I don't believe that. I believe that was the case when Jim Crow was the thing. I don't believe that that's the case now.
Okay, and let's get Caleb to respond. Go ahead, because he had one, like his eyes jumped big.
He got a face.
His eyes jumped big on my side.
Yeah.
Caleb in like, what are you talking
about? I want to agree with who's dude in the Cornelius. He had a good point. Like, I don't think they were being genuine in asking that question at the debate. I think it was more so like, well, this is popular right now, so let's ask it. I don't think they give a fuck about that question.
I agree with that.
Second, I definitely think it's appropriate to have that conversation because of the way the world is right now. And we can say it's always been that way, but with how much more in our faces it is with media right now, I think it would be appropriate to have those conversations now, because if we don't, the kids are for sure already about to see that shit online anyway. So they might as well be hearing it from the house. That's pretty much the biggest thing about it. Like, I think it's 100% necessary. So they're not fishing for shit on their own.
Which conversation are you referring to?
Having the race talk.
Like, just generally speaking, or are you speaking on the media promoting the narrative, or a black man actually being?
I thought you responded to Cornelius saying that it wasn't necessary to have the talk.
As far when I say the talk and not being necessary, what I mean is spewing a narrative to your child saying that he is essentially 12 steps back trying to fight to become equal. That's the talk I'm speaking on.
Got you. I think it's appropriate to have you, You gotta have a full
What
circle.
I hear from you, what I'm hearing is it's appropriate to have a talk about race in general because of the climate we're in. That talk, of course, that talk you should have that talk with your child just in general, but not just a black family. Any family should have that talk. The talk I'm referring to is you're behind on everything because of your race. That's the talk I'm referring.
But okay, and that's fine. But I also think that as a African American, you can explain to your child that they might. I mean, it's a fact that they might have to work a little bit harder than, you know. I mean, it's a fact. Your Harvard degree. I mean, your Triton or Malcolm X degree don't mean shit to a Harvard degree. You have your skin.
That's more classic.
No, that's still starting a few steps back. If I tell my son that you're going to have to work 3 or 4 more harder than the next man, that's what you're saying.
No, I think the equivalent is if your son went to Harvard and then a white guy went to Harvard and he still had to work twice as hard to get.
Hold on,
and he does. Can
I jump in?
If a white guy and a black guy both went to Harvard, there is still a good percentage chance that the white guy will get overlooked because he's white. I mean, that's just the world we live in.
So hold on, let me bring up something on that, the Harvard thing. You know about Dartman, you know about equal opportunities that they have at Harvard that wasn't always around. So is that what you're getting at, Cornelius, with the Harvard thing? Because I know, like, you guys all saw the movie Dope, right?
No, like, I just use that as a metaphor. I just use that as a metaphor. I'm just saying, regardless of what examples we use or whatever, you know, and we don't live in a perfect world at all, but your skin color, it does matter. And
I just don't see that playing a fact. I know the narrative.
Hold on. Hey, hold on. Let's get Leanne, and then we'll get Chad and Jaida in.
So I just want to interject because right now I changed fields. I'm in a life insurance field, so I'm all about creating Black wealth. And there's an article, a factual article circulating right now that says if the racial wealth divide is left unaddressed, median Black household wealth is on a path to hit 0 by 2053. That is factual information. So we are behind because of the color of our skin. We have come up, we've been behind we're just trying to catch up. So it's not a narrative, it is factual information that if we do not address the wealth gap for Black Americans, our wealth will be 0 by 2053.
So, and I can't speak on the Black wealth gap versus the white wealth gap because I haven't done that research, but I do know we speak on.
I'd be happy to send you this article.
But it all goes together.
Nothing's univariate. It's not univariate. So, for example, and this is just an example, the wealth gap regarding men and women, right? The ultimate conclusion that people came to was sexism. We hire men because they're men. We pay women less because they're women. But then when you actually look into the economical studies on the wealth gap, it's not univariate. It's multiple reasons why a woman gets paid less than a man. Now, is it right? Should we address it? That's another question. But is it because
okay?
They do the sex?
Hold on one second. Hold on one second. Hold on.
That's a bad example.
Hold on one second.
It was that way because men were providers, so they got paid more.
No, even today,
back in the day, I know, but that's because the system hasn't changed, and you have to address systematic and institutional racism in that divide. The reason why men get paid more is because back in the day, and it still holds even though the society and everything has changed, is because they were providers. So they got paid more than women because women weren't even in the workforce to begin with. So we have never addressed the roots of the issues historically over time. And so they still trend to this day, which is why we're behind in wealth, which is why men get paid more than women.
I can agree with what Leanne's saying.
Hold on one second.
Everything was created by white men.
Got you. Hey, hold on.
Set themselves up to be successful.
Hold on one second, Darae. Everybody done chimed in. Don Campbell, do you want to chime in before we jump to another one?
Yes. Can you see me?
Yeah, we can see you. We can see you perfect.
First of all, how everybody doing this evening?
Oh, look at that.
The word racism is basically, it starts with race. Race is just like you're racing in a race. That's where racism come from. Everything we doing is based on race because we in competition with everybody, and the race is not fair. So, and the race will never be fair. So you always dealing with racism. I mean, no matter what you do. I mean, if it didn't mean anything, they wouldn't put it on your application. So, far as racism, it's just about race, and that's what everything comes down to. It comes down to race and money. We'll never have wealth. We'll never have wealth because we're so far behind in the race, and the stuff is stacked up against us. We can never catch up. I mean, we all have the talk. The talk may not come from your father, may not come from your mom, may come from a coach, a teacher, a mentor, but you always have that talk. Now, the talk may be different. It depends on your class. If you're a good student, then you might have a talk when you're going in college. If you're a bad student, you may have a talk when you finna commit a crime. So you will have the talk to let you know that you are different and you up under different circumstances. And as far as not having the talk, if it's life or death for your son or daughter, you damn well better have that talk. So I mean, far as having the talk, yeah, you need to have a talk. Now, as far as telling your kids like they can't make it or they won't achieve, no, you shouldn't do that. But you must let them know that they are different and they will come up against some different circumstances eventually. It may not happen in college. It may happen when they grow, when they get in corporate America, but it will happen.
My personal opinion, I do believe that the talk is very, very necessary. It is a realistic conversation that needs to happen. Like Don said, I'd rather you be equipped with everything when you go outside than not be equipped with nothing. And then you pretty much is out there empty, you naked, you don't know what's about to happen. I'd rather you be equipped with those things. It's very, very important to have.
Can I ask personal questions?
Go ahead.
Since you're a father of a Black son, when do you plan on having that conversation with him?
Well, honestly, I got a 13-year-old.
A long way from me. I know he's a long way from me.
No, I'm telling you right now. I got a 13-year-old in the house right now. He had that conversation maybe in 3rd grade. I want you to know something, kid. Hey, your life is gonna be hard just because of this, but I want you to know you can still strive to be better. With my little one, it's words of affirmation every day as far as, hey, you're gonna be a great man, you're gonna be a great man. And I also have to tell them on the other end of that spectrum, it's gonna be people who may not like how great you are or where you're going in life. So I'm gonna tell that story every day. Even with you guys, like as I taught you guys, every day it was like, hey, let me tell y'all something. The kids over in that park, they get a little bit more resources than you guys. So we gotta work a little bit harder than them. Because the simple fact is, when you go to St. Andrews and they go to St. Luke's, on a high school transcript, they're looking at like, oh man, this kid went to St. Angela. It's a private school, but it ain't as good as St. Luke's. And the same thing, if I went to Douglas, Darae went to Douglas, was we on the same level as the Whitney Young kids? Nah, not on paper. That's what it is, though. Those are kids who get those special privileges and stuff like that. Now, we on the other end, who on the other opposite ends, Austin and stuff, just got to work a little harder, because that's what it is. It's set up for us not to win. It's set up for us to play harder. Jesus was a Black man. He had to play harder than everybody else. So it wasn't never really set up for us to actually be on the same playing field as everybody. And as far as it being like a tool right now as political stands, they're going to use everything as a tool right now. They're going to use the Black woman as a tool. They're going to use, us being incarcerated more than anybody else. They're going to use everything us right now as a tool. Our culture, our music, the way we wear our clothes, everything that we do is going to be used as a tool. But I want to jump to this next question.